A metal stake slammed into the dirt so hard it vibrated through my boots. The guy in the reflective vest didn't even look up when he said, "Sir, you're trespassing on HOA property." My jaw tightened. Name's Marshall Stokes, 38, stubborn, and not the guy you accuse of trespassing on his own land. Because the ground under this man's brand new work boots, that was mine. All 1,500 acres. "Try that line again," I said. He flipped his clipboard around like he was reading off a corporate script. "Per documentation filed last month," he recited, "these acres now fall under Oak Ridge HOA jurisdiction." "Sure. And I'm the CEO of NASA." Before I could respond, a voice drifted across the field, sharp enough to cut through steel. "Marshall, you're disrupting a legally authorized survey." Brenda Bartlett, HOA president. And the human version of "per my last email." Early 50s, blonde bob, pearls at 8 a.m., and the kind of confidence only people with too much paperwork and zero oversight ever have. She strutted toward us like she owned the sun. "The board voted unanimously to acquire this land," she said. I stared at her. "You voted to steal my family's property?" She smiled like she was approving a budget request. "Call it strategic expansion." My pulse thudded. Her certainty, her documents, her timing, something was seriously off. If you love real-deal justice stories and HOA power trips gone wrong, hit subscribe because this one turns into a corporate nightmare real fast. And when Brenda smirked, I realized someone had. Brenda planted herself between me and the survey flags, as if she were guarding a Fortune 500 merger. "Marshall," she said with that calm, CEO-fake smile, "let's keep emotions out of this. The documentation is clear." I stepped closer. "Show me the documentation." She didn't flinch, didn't blink, just slid a neatly folded set of papers from her leather folder like she'd rehearsed this moment in the mirror. "This," she said, tapping the page with a manicured finger, "is the board-approved transfer authorization. Your land is being repurposed for community development. You weren't using it anyway." I couldn't help it. I laughed. A short, disbelieving one. Because if anyone knows me, they know my land isn't just land. It's oxygen. Brenda crossed her arms. "Please don't make this difficult. We followed the process. Chain of command. Due diligence. Corporate phrases. Cold, practiced. Dangerous." The guy in the vest shuffled awkwardly behind her like he suddenly realized he wasn't just pounding stakes. He was standing in the middle of a legal minefield. "You're telling me," I said slowly, "that the Oak Ridge HOA bought 1,500 acres without me signing anything?" Brenda gave a tiny shrug. "A quiet acquisition keeps drama low. Residents appreciate efficiency." Efficiency. That word hit me wrong, like the kind of companies that use it right before they fire an entire department. I locked eyes with her. "Brenda, you forged something, didn't you?" Her smile didn't fade, but it tightened barely. Just enough to confirm what I already felt crawling under my skin. And that tiny twitch in her smile told me everything. Whatever they filed, my signature was on it. And I damn sure didn't put it there. I didn't waste another breath on Brenda. I got in my truck, slammed the door hard enough to shake dust off the dashboard, and drove straight to the county record's office. If someone forged my name, I wanted to see the crime scene myself. The clerk behind the counter, a tired guy with coffee stains on his shirt, typed my parcel number. His eyebrows shot up so fast they almost left his forehead. You said this land is yours?" "Since birth," I said. "What are you seeing?" He turned the monitor toward me, and I swear my blood went cold. There it was, a quitclaim deed filed 2 weeks ago, signed by Marshall R. Stokes. Only problem. My signature resembled someone tracing it with their left hand while riding a roller coaster. "That's not mine," I said quietly. The clerk nodded. "Yeah, I didn't think so. This looks sloppy." Sloppy was polite. It looked criminal. I pulled out my phone and called the only person I trusted with something this big. Victor Hale, old college buddy. Now, a real estate fraud attorney with a reputation for shredding scammers like paper. He picked up on the second ring. "Talk to me." "They forged my deed," I said, silence, then a low whistle. "That's felony territory, Marshall, and if they filed it, I can tear their whole operation apart." My pulse finally steadied. But Victor hadn't even seen the other document yet. The one that proved this wasn't just fraud, it was a full-blown conspiracy. Victor met me at his office 20 minutes later. He didn't even sit, just grabbed the forged deed from my hand like it was radioactive. "Yeah," he said, scanning it fast. "This isn't amateur hour fraud. This is premeditated. Someone tried to run a full corporate takeover on you." He slid the deed under a dock camera, fingers flying across his keyboard. Within seconds, another document appeared on the screen, one I hadn't seen yet. A wire receipt. From a Tampa-based development company to the Oak Ridge HOA. Amount $2.4 million. Memo line, Phase 1 land acquisition. I stared at it. "What the hell is Phase 1? Victor leaned back, rubbing his jaw. "It means they didn't just forge your deed, they sold your land before they even stole it." That hit harder than Brenda's fake smile. "They already took money for it," he continued. "Deposits, pre-sale agreements." And he clicked another file. "Look here. These funds aren't in the HOA's official budget. A separate account, off the books, hidden corporate-level laundering." Victor shook his head. "Marshall, this whole operation is dirty. And if the board signed off on this, every single one of them is complicit." I clenched my hands. Brenda didn't just steal land. She built an entire expansion project on a fraud. "So what do we do?" I asked. Victor's grin was small, sharp. "Simple, we burn their paper trail to the ground legally." My heartbeat kicked up. For the first time, I wasn't just angry, I was ready. But before we could strike back, the HOA made its first move, straight at me. They didn't wait. Not even 24 hours passed before the first envelope showed up in my mailbox. A bright white HOA notice stamped in red. "Urgent NON compliance action required." I hadn't even opened it yet, and I could feel the nonsense radiating off the paper. Inside, a fine for obstructing community development efforts. $500, I laughed out loud. They forged my signature, sold my land, and now they were billing me for getting in their way. Cute. The next morning, another envelope. This one said I owed them a pre-assessment fee, then a survey interference penalty, then a failure to attend HOA orientation session. I don't even live in the HOA. This wasn't paperwork. It was intimidation, corporate bullying 101. Victor stared at the growing pile on my kitchen table and let out a low, irritated grunt. "They're pushing pressure tactics," he said. "Death by paperwork. Classic move. If you weren't you, they'd scare you into backing off." But they underestimated one thing: I don't rattle. That afternoon, I caught a silver SUV creeping past my property line. HOA logo on the door. The driver snapped photos like he was scouting a target. I stepped onto the porch. "You lost," I called out. He sped off so fast he kicked up a dust cloud. Victor looked at me, eyebrows raised. "Yeah, they're panicking." "Good. They should be. Because if there's one thing worse than a man defending his land, it's a man who just realized he's being hunted on it, and if they wanted to play games, fine. Because my next move was going to hit them harder than they ever expected. If they wanted a fight on paper, I was about to give them one backed by a badge. I walked into the sheriff's office with a manila folder under my arm and a level of calm that only comes from being truly, deeply done with someone's nonsense. Deputy Ramirez looked up from his desk. "Morning, what can I do for you?" I placed the forged deed on the counter, then the wire receipt, then the stack of HOA fines. His eyes narrowed. "Is this all connected?" "Oh yeah," I said. "And it gets worse." He picked up the forged deed and held it close. "Whoever signed this wasn't even trying to copy your signature. This looks like a toddler scribbled it with a crayon." "Exactly." I added the side account records Victor had pulled. Ramirez's eyebrows shot up. "Is that a hidden HOA fund?" "Used to sell my land before they stole it," I said. He let out a slow whistle. "That's felony-level stuff, real felony, not the TV kind. The people go to prison for a long time kind." He stood, grabbed the folder, and disappeared into the back room. 10 minutes later, he returned with the sheriff himself. Sheriff Dalton was a big man with the face of someone who had stopped being impressed by stupidity 20 years ago. He held up the forged deed. "You telling me the Oak Ridge HOA filed this at county records?" "I'm telling you they forged it," I replied. He nodded once, sharp, decisive. "That's enough for a warrant." My chest loosened for the first time in days. They weren't just messing with me anymore. They were messing with law enforcement. And the moment that warrant dropped, the HOA's perfect little world started cracking, fast. The warrant went through faster than Brenda could rehearse a fake apology. By noon, Investigators were already pulling files from the HOA office, boxing up hard drives and taping evidence bags shut. But Brenda, she was nowhere near the mess she'd created. A maintenance guy shrugged when deputies asked for her. "Board retreat," he said. "Country club." Of course. When real trouble hits, cowards run to the nicest building with free coffee. Victor and I drove straight there. The Oak Ridge Country Club was all glass doors, polished wood, and the smell of money pretending to be class. We pushed through the double doors and stepped into a conference room full of khaki pants, pearl necklaces, and fear disguised as confidence. Brenda was at the head of the table, waving around a blueprint like she was unveiling a new tech product. "Brenda," I said, loud enough to stop the room. "We need to talk." Her head jerked up. The color drained from her face for half a second before she reset into her corporate smile. "This is a private meeting, Marshal." "Not anymore," I said. "Your office is being raided by the sheriff's department." Silence. A heavy, suffocating one. The vice president, Hal Jenkins, mid-40s, crisp navy suit, ego the size of a billboard, leaned forward. "What's this about?" I locked eyes with Brenda. "You forged my signature, you filed a fake deed. And you sold my land to developers before you even stole it." For the first time, Brenda's confidence cracked. Her phone buzzed violently on the table. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. They're requesting all our financial records," she whispered. I turned to leave. "You should answer that." Because once those investigators opened the books, the real nightmare for the HOA was only just beginning. By the time I got home, Victor was already waiting on my porch, laptop open, eyes wide like he'd just uncovered a crime syndicate. "Marshal," he said without looking up, "you need to see this." He flipped the screen toward me. Emails encrypted, forwarded between HOA board members, time-stamped at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Subject lines like, "Asset routing, transfer draft, keep this off record." My stomach tightened. Victor scrolled again, this time showing a ledger, not just any ledger. A digital accounting sheet with line items labeled, "Community Improvement Discretionary Fund." Except the money wasn't going to playgrounds or sidewalks. It was going to luxury flights, personal credit cards, consultation fees, and a payment to a shell company based in Nevada. "These people weren't just stealing from you," Victor said. "They were turning the HOA into a private ATM." It got worse. He clicked one more file, an actual diagram showing how the board planned to divide my 1,500 acres into phases, flip them, then move the profits through a chain of LLCs like a corporate laundering pipeline. I felt the anger hit me hard, hot, steady, controlled. "So they've done this before?" I asked. Victor nodded. "Yeah, and they were planning to do it again. Your land was supposed to fund their entire expansion loop." I exhaled slowly, letting the truth settle. This wasn't incompetence. This wasn't miscommunication. This was a networked fraud operation with a smiling blonde CEO at the top. But the real turning point came when one man, one neighbor, showed me evidence that blew the whole scheme wide open. I was unlocking my front gate when I heard someone clear their throat behind me. I turned fast. It was Mr. Green, my quiet neighbor from down the dirt road. 60, flannel shirts, a man who usually spoke only when he had something worth saying. But today, his hands were shaking. "Marshal, can we talk?" he asked, voice low, nervous. I nodded and he stepped closer, checking over his shoulder like he was afraid someone had followed him. "They're watching my house," he whispered. "2 HOA board members showed up last night, said I needed to stay cooperative." My stomach dropped. "What did they want from you?" He swallowed hard, pulled a folded envelope from his jacket and pressed it into my hand. "I didn't sign anything," he said urgently. "They told me to. They said it was just a neighborhood improvement notice." His voice broke slightly. "But they lied. Marshal, they used my signature on something. Something big." I opened the envelope. Inside was a printed PDF, a multi-page document, and right there under Community Consensus Verification, his signature, except he never signed it. The document stated that all neighboring property owners had voted in favor of the HOA purchasing my 1,500 acres. They forged a community vote. My fists clenched. My breathing slowed. This wasn't just fraud. This was a staged takeover engineered down to the last fake approval. Mr. Green's voice quivered. They threatened to fine me, to revoke my well permit, even to seize my tool shed if I didn't cooperate. I placed a hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing. This is the smoking gun. He nodded once, relieved but scared, because with that forged community vote in my hand, I finally had enough to bring the entire HOA down in one move permanently. Victor stared at the forged community vote like it was the final puzzle piece he'd been hunting for. This is it, he said. This document alone can destroy the entire board. They forged a collective consent. That's racketeering territory. He wasn't exaggerating. We drove straight to the sheriff's office, Mr. Green riding with us, quiet, pale, but determined. Sheriff Dalton met us in the lobby. You'd better have something big, he said. Victor handed him the document. Dalton scanned the first page, then the second, then he stopped cold at the signature list. Green, he said, looking up sharply. Is this your signature? Mr. Green shook his head. No, sir. They pressured me, but I never signed that. Dalton's jaw flexed. Then this is a criminal conspiracy. He motioned us back to the briefing room, where a whiteboard was already covered in timelines, names, and arrows. HOA board investigations in full swing. Dalton grabbed a red marker and circled Brenda's name so hard the tip snapped. We're done playing nice, he said. Forgery, financial fraud, falsified records, misuse of HOA funds, coercion. This is enough to lock up half that board. Victor leaned on the table. And we're not finished, Dalton nodded. We're issuing search warrants for every board member's home and office, phones, personal accounts, everything. For the first time, I felt the balance shift. Not hope, not relief, just clarity. They stole from me. They threatened my neighbor. They built a scheme on lies. Now the law was coming for them. But none of us expected what happened next, because when the deputies showed up at Brenda's house, she was already gone. By the time deputies reached Brenda's front porch, her driveway was empty. Her Lexus was gone. Her curtains were pulled shut, and the neighbors said they hadn't seen her since early morning. Sheriff Dalton cursed under his breath. Of course she ran. Guilty people sprint before the cuffs show up. Victor tapped his phone. She used her HOA credit card 30 minutes ago, gas station on Highway 12. Dalton didn't hesitate. Get in. We're moving. I climbed into the back of the cruiser as the lights flashed on. We tore down the road, dust and gravel flying behind us. Victor pulled up the last GPS ping. She's not just running, she's heading toward the state line. My jaw tightened. Brenda wasn't the type to panic. She was the type to execute backup plans. She's trying to get to her sisters, I said. Across the border. If she makes it there, she'll vanish into paperwork for months. Dalton pressed harder on the gas. Not happening. 10 minutes later, we spotted it, her Lexus abandoned at a rest stop. Door open, engine warm. Dalton motioned to a deputy. Search the area, she's close. I scanned the tree line and saw it. A figure in a navy blazer, kneeling in the leaves, digging frantically near a fallen log. Victor squinted. What is she doing? Dalton stepped toward her slowly. Hands up, Brenda. She spun around, face twisted, breath shaking. I'm not going to jail, she cried. You don't understand, there's more. This wasn't supposed to fall on me. Her voice cracked. Her hands were muddy, and next to her was a half-buried metal lockbox. Dalton pointed at it. What's in the box? Brenda swallowed hard. Proof, she whispered. Proof that the board wasn't the only one involved. And when that box opened, the truth inside changed everything, because the real mastermind wasn't Brenda at all. Dalton kept his weapon steady as we approached the half-buried metal box. Step back, Brenda, he ordered. She raised trembling hands. I wasn't the one who planned this, she stammered. You think I'd risk everything alone? Dalton popped the lockbox open. Inside, stacks of sealed envelopes stamped with a logo I'd never seen before. A black triangle, bold, corporate, predatory. Victor lifted the top envelope. His face darkened as he read. These are contracts, he muttered, signed months before the forged deed was even filed. I stepped closer. Contracts for my land, divided into development phases, sold off to a shell corporation that didn't even exist on paper until recently. Someone had planned this takeover long before Brenda ever set foot on my property. She sniffed, breath shaky. They told me if I rushed the deal, if I pushed the board, they'd handle the paperwork. The signatures, the votes. Everything. They, I echoed. Brenda shut her eyes. Ridge Corp. A whisper like the name itself could send someone to finish her off. Victor let out a slow, angry exhale. That company's under investigation in 3 states, he said. Land grabs disguised as community expansion. Dalton radioed back up. We're not dealing with an HOA anymore, he said. We're dealing with organized crime. And for the first time, Brenda looked less like a villain and more like the weakest link in a very dangerous chain. Because whoever was behind Ridge HOA, they weren't done yet, and I wasn't walking away until every last one of them fell. Federal agents swooped in like thunder. Brenda was cuffed first, but she didn't scream or resist. She just stared at that triangle logo like it still owned her. Ridge HOA executives didn't get far either. Within days, the feds froze accounts, raided offices, and seized enough documents to choke a courtroom. Turns out, my land wasn't the first they tried to steal. Just the first they failed to steal. Weeks later, the courtroom was packed when the judge struck the gavel and delivered the ruling. Oak Ridge HOA permanently dissolved every fraudulent property, repossessed all board members banned from holding power against Ridge HOA. Dragged into a federal conspiracy case, Victor leaned closer and whispered, "You didn't just win, Marshall, you changed the rules." Maybe he was right, because when I stepped outside, people weren't glaring anymore, they were smiling. Real smiles, not HOA-approved ones. 6 months later, a wooden sign stands where the first stake hit the dirt. It reads, "We own our land, not the other way around." Kids run through the field, neighbors wave instead of watching. And peace, the real kind, finally came back home. As for me, I still patrol the fence line some nights, not out of fear, but because this land is more than dirt. It's history, legacy, a promise, and promises don't go quiet. Not with me.